What's up, guys? This is Pavel from Coding Jam Session. Welcome to another episode of our live coding series. And today I'm going to try and solve the day 3 of last year's Advent of Code. Stay tuned. Right, let's dive into this task description and let's read the story. You and Elf eventually reach a gondola lift station. He says the gondola lift will take you up to the water source, but this is as far as he can bring you. You go inside. It doesn't take long to find the gondolas, but there seems to be a problem. They're not moving. Ah! You turn around to see a slightly greasy elf with a wrench and a look of surprise. Sorry, I wasn't expecting anyone. The gondola lift isn't working right now. It'll still be a while before I can fix it. You offer to help. The engineer explains that an engine part seems to be missing from the engine, but nobody can figure out which one. If you can adapt all the part numbers in the engine schematic, it should be easy to work out which part is missing. The engine schematic, which is our puzzle input, consists of a visual representation of the engine. There are lots of numbers and symbols you don't really understand, but apparently any number adjacent to a symbol, even diagonally, is a part number. It should be included in your sum. Periods do not count as a symbol. So we've got an example of an input. Okay, in this schematic, two numbers are not part numbers because they are not adjacent to a symbol, 114 and 58. Okay, because we've got a star, and this is not adjacent, and 58 is not adjacent to any symbol as well. Okay, every other number is adjacent to a symbol, and so is a part number. Their sum is 4361. So all we need to do let's quickly think. Okay, so what we need to do is find all the symbols and check for every adjacent number. So for this star it's gonna be 35467. For this one it's gonna be only this. For this one only this, and so on. And we need to sum up all those numbers. Okay, so that should be pretty easy. I hope. Let's try to solve it as quickly as possible. The last two videos took me a little bit too long, but let's have a look. Okay, first let's get our inputs. So our test inputs. Let me move this so you can actually see all the code. Let's just leave the inputs visible. Right, so we've got our test input. Let's get our puzzle input as well. Okay, and let's move on to our file. Let's do some copies from the previous day. We want to copy our performance thing so we can measure how quickly our algorithm is gonna work. So we need just this. And this, okay. Alright, let's get the methods. And let's invoke the method here. Okay, now let's get the data imported. So we need our file name. At the beginning it's going to be test inputs.txt, and let's get our data. Okay, so how do we want our data? We want because we're gonna want two coordinates to find, because, okay, let me think. So all those places are adjacent to a star. So not only we're checking the same row, but the row above and the row underneath. So we need two coordinates. So it's gonna be a coordinate for a row and coordinate for a position in a row. So for example, if it's a second row, it's gonna be 2, and the star is on position 4, so its coordinates is gonna be 2, 4. So we need all the coordinates for the fields adjacent to a star, so we can check if there's a number that that is on any of those fields. So we're gonna check for all those numbers adjacent to a star. Okay, so that's fine. So since we're gonna deal with the coordinates, we're gonna do a matrix. So an array of arrays. It's gonna be one big array of rows, and each row is gonna be an array of elements. That's how we're gonna do it. So it should be fairly simple. Okay. Read file name. We're gonna get it to string, and we're gonna split it into rows. So we're gonna split it. A second, I have to change the keyboard. Okay. We're gonna split it like this. Now we're gonna have the rows, and the rows we need to split into elements. So we need to map through all the rows, and we're gonna return yeah, we're gonna go through all the rows, and we're gonna split it again, and we're gonna split it by empty string, which is gonna split every single element in a row. Okay, let's console log our data, how it looks. Our data. Oh, we need to import first. Okay, and let's have a look. Yeah, so our data is, as you can see, an array of rows. Let me just make it bigger. So we've got a big array of rows, and each row is an array of elements. So this elements is numbers, or those dots, or the symbols. Okay, that's fine. We can actually parse those numbers to integers. Yeah, let's map it and parse it to integers. So no, okay, we're gonna want to map in here inside this. So like that, and we're gonna map every element, and we're gonna check if we can actually parse it to integer. Then we're gonna return the parsed element, and if not, we're gonna return unparsed element. Okay, that's fine. So now our data has numbers parsed to numbers, which is fine. So we've got numbers, we've got dots, we've got symbols. Now let's quickly think how we're gonna approach the task. So our solve method is gonna have to definitely go through it's gonna have to map through all those elements. So for each row, and in here we're gonna map through all the elements of a row. That's for sure. Now we're gonna need the indexes because we're dealing with coordinates. So actually, sorry about that, it's gonna be J for rows, and we're gonna go with I for index within the row. Okay. So basically, what we need to do is we need to go through all the elements, and find a symbol, I think. Yeah, we need to find all the symbols. When we find the symbol, then for this symbol, we need to find all those coordinates around it. So the possible coordinates that are touching the symbol. And when we've got those, for each of those coordinates, we need to find if there's a corresponding number to the coordinate. Yeah, okay, another thing, because with this 35, so there's two coordinates, this one and this one, but it's only one number, yeah? So we're gonna have to keep track of those numbers of those fields that we're using already. Okay. And coordinates is gonna be the J and I. J is gonna stand for the row and I for the coordinate within the row. Okay, so let's actually implement the method, which is we're gonna name it find coordinates. And when we've got those coordinates, for each of this coordinate, we're gonna need to find a number. Okay, so we're gonna need a second method that's gonna be called find number. We're gonna need to implement those two methods. Okay, find coordinates. So we need to pass it a coordinate of our star, I guess. Okay, and this coordinates is gonna be an array. So let's declare an array. Okay, let's actually code properly. To an array, and we need some loops. Let me just quickly think what we need for G equals J, which is a row minus 1. Okay, so we're going to start with the first row. G is less than J plus 2. So we're mapping through the rows. Plus, okay, and within that we're gonna go for h equals to I minus 1. So we're starting with a row, with a preview. If a star is in row, second row, we're gonna start with row 1 and go with those two rows. That's our first loop. And the second loop, we're gonna start with with the index minus to the star and go with all the way until index star plus 1. Yeah, so h is less than I plus 2. And we h plus. Okay. So we're mapping through all those coordinates, and we need to get a check. What do we need? So we're mapping through. So, okay, so we need to check if we don't have a star, because we're not passing this coordinate. So we need to check that. Okay, if j is not equal to, or no, if j is equal to g and I is equal to h, and we're gonna do it like this, and we're gonna negate it. So if they're not equal, both of them, okay, then we're gonna do something. And what other conditions do we need? We need to check that because the symbol can be in here, so we need to check that those are greater than zeros. Symbol can be in here as well, so we need to check that the row is not, less than 0 and things, because we need to check for the corner conditions. Okay, so ag needs to be greater than 0 and g needs to be less than what? G's are rows, so it needs to be less than data.length. Okay, because data.length is gonna simply give us the row numbers. But we've got the 0 index as well. G needs to be less than data.length, and we need to do the same for same two conditions for the index within the row, so it needs to be less than length of the row, and it needs to be greater than 0. Okay. What did I do? Why is there semicolon here? If we want to have what the hell am I doing? Yeah, there we go. So we're making sure that this condition is making sure that we're not pointing to the star with our coordinates. These two are making sure that the row is not, less than 0 or greater than the length of the data. Yeah. And we're making sure the same that, if a symbol is here, that we're not checking the element with a negative index, or the element that is going outside of a row. Okay, so if we've got all those conditions, we can simply push the coordinates to our array. Coordinates.push, and we're gonna store them as an array with two elements, so row and an index. So that's what our coordinates are gonna be. Okay, and what we wanna do? We simply wanna return the coordinates array. So return an array of coordinates. Okay, so within our solve method, okay, yeah, so we've got a method that's gonna find all those coordinates for every symbol if we meet a symbol. Okay, so let's check if this method is actually working. So the way we're gonna do that is we need a what? Okay, not this method. What am I doing here? So let's actually get some char code. So the dot is gonna be equal to this char code at 0. Okay, so we've got the char code for the dot. It's actually console log, so we can actually see that. Let's get rid of this for the moment. Okay, so we can see the char code of the dot. So that's actually working. That's fine, because we're gonna ignore those dots. So to do is simply we need to check if this method is working. So we're gonna check if, so we're mapping through all those elements. We're gonna check, we need to find the symbol. So symbol is gonna be an element that is not a number and that's got a different char code than a dot. So that's we need to check. So if is not a number element and at the same time that char code at 0 is not equal to dot, and so we know that we're not the way we're checking if there's a symbol, because it can be a star, it can be this one as well, or it can be a plus. They're all symbols, so we're simply checking if there's no dot or a number. Then if it's not a dot or a number, then we know that it's our symbol. Now simply let's get those coordinates. Coordinates equal to find coordinates, and we need to pass the coordinates for elements. So coordinates is going to be j for the row and I for the element coordinates. So j and I, and let's, when we do that, let's console log. And yeah, that shouldn't be too many. So let's console log symbol coordinates. We need to check if we're getting proper. Oh, there we go. So for each symbol, we're getting array with coordinates, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 times 2, 8 coordinates. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8 for each. That's fine. So we're actually getting all the necessary coordinates. Let's just quickly have a look. So the star is a 1, 1, 4 coordinate. So we should have 0, 2, which is 7, all the way up to 0, 4. 0, 3, 0, 4, that's fine. And for the next rows, it's all correct, and we're not getting the star coordinates. Okay, so we can see that this void coordinates method is working. We got the coordinates for all the symbols. So for all the symbols, we're getting the coordinates around it. So for the fields that are touching the symbol, pardon-moi. Okay, so now when we got all those fields around, we simply need to implement the find number method that's gonna find if there's a number that's touching the star. So that should be fairly easy. That should be fairly easy. Find number method. Okay, let's go. So the number is going to be 467 or 114 and so on. So it's not a single digit, it's multiple digits. So we're simply gonna need to collect all the digits in the form of a string and then parse it to integers. So that's gonna be fine. So we're gonna need our s equals to an empty string at the beginning. Okay. Find number, so we're gonna need our coordinates, row and a element coordinate. Okay. So we're gonna check if that's actually a number. So we're simply checking that for the first check is when we get each of the coordinates, we're checking if that's a number. So for this coordinate, we see that 7 is a number, so that's fine. This coordinate is a dot, So it's not a number. So if it's not a number, then we can simply skip it and just, return false. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So actually we're gonna, if it's a number, then we're gonna return some kind of a string, which is, or not a string, gonna parse integer or string, and if it's not a number, if it's not a number, we're gonna return false. That's fine. Okay. What did I do? Oh, it needs to be in here. What am I doing? So we're definitely gonna return some form of this, and if not, we're gonna return a false statement. Okay, that's fine. And now, if we know that it's a number, it's simple. We need to go all the way up and see if the next fields are going to be numbers as well and concatenate it to a string. And the same way we need to go back and see if those fields are digits. If those fields are digits as well and concatenate it to a string. So for example, in here, the next field that we meet is not a number, so we're gonna loop through all those fields in a row, and we see that this field is not a number, so we're gonna skip it. And then we're gonna do another loop going back. We see that this is a number, so we're gonna concatenate it with our string, and then we're gonna meet a dot. It's not a number, so we're gonna have string containing 3 and 5, parse it to integer, it's gonna be 35. Okay, that's fine. So we know what we're gonna do. We need to implement. So we need two loops. First one going towards the end of the string, and the second one is going towards the beginning of the string. So we're gonna perform the loop while every element we meet is actually a number. If it's not a number, then okay, if we're using the while loop, we're gonna need h equals to our index as well. Data j and h, those are our coordinates, and we're checking if it is a number, and if it is a number, we want to, if it is a number, then we need to add it to our string. We're going forward, so our string is plus equals this field, data j h to string, because we're dealing with string, and we're gonna increment our index. But since we're incrementing, so we need to check if if we delimit end of an array as well. Yeah, so let's just check if data dot j dot okay, that's fine, and yeah, the only problem is that if we're gonna go like this, like here for example, if I'm gonna go like this, I'm gonna go all the way here, get 598, record it, but then this one is touching a star as well, so I'm gonna go again. But I can actually, what we can do is, if we use those digits, they can be used only once. So if we use them, we simply need to clear those fields. So turn them to a dot, modify our data array, turn the fields to a dot. So next time, if I'm gonna use those and turn them into a dot, then when I move to this coordinate, it's gonna be a dot. So I'm not gonna record it anymore. So that should be fine. So if we're gonna add this to a string, we're simply gonna turn this field to a dot. There we go. And then we're gonna need our second loop, but we need to reset our coordinates. So now, if we started, if for example, so if we started like here, if we started going up from this one, then we need to start going down. So we need to start with this index. So we're gonna reset h equals I minus 1. That's fine. And now we're gonna go another loop. So while it's a number, that j h. So while it's still a number, we're gonna do something. We need to check as well that h is greater than 0. Greater or equal. 0 is an index as well. Yeah, there we go. Okay, what's wrong with this? Oh. What the hell am I doing? Pardonnez-moi. That's fine. And now, so we're not gonna add. We're not gonna go with this because we need to add to the back of a string. So let's get a temporary value. So that j and h. We're gonna put it to string as well, and if we've got our temp, so our string is gonna be temp plus the current string because we're adding to the beginning of a string. Let's do the same thing that we've done above. So reset every digit that we've used already. That's fine, and this time we're gonna decrement our index. Okay, and that's it. We went all the way up, all the way down, and we're returning the integer version of our string. So that should be fine. Our method should be working. Okay, let's give it a shot actually. So we've got our method, and let's okay, in this case, we've got all our coordinates. We've got our find number method implemented. So for each of the coordinates we found coordinates for each, we're simply gonna find all those numbers. Coordinates for each coordinate. We're gonna we need to find the number for the coordinate, and we need to sum them up. Okay, so let's actually implement a counter, set it to 0, and if we've got counter, we can simply go counter plus equals get the number from our coordinates, and our coordinate is an array with 2 coordinates, but we're passing a separate coordinates to a function, so we can actually simply destructure the coordinate like that, and that should be fine. Oh, it's find number, not get number. Pardonnez-moi. Find number function. Okay, so and yeah, our solution is the counter, so we're simply gonna console.log the okay, let's result. We're gonna console.log the counter. Right, let's get rid. Do we have any other console logs that we left? No, we got rid of all of them. So let's have a look. How's our solution? 4361, and it's 4361 in here. Okay, so everything's working fine. Let's go with our input file, not the test input. Let's turn it to the regular input, and let's see if it's gonna work as well. 535 5351. Okay, let's type in the answer. Let's have a look. 5351. There we go. Lovely. We get a gold star. Sweet. Just to sum up, because it was easy. So we find symbols. For every symbol, we find coordinates around it. And out of those coordinates, we're simply creating the numbers by concatenating the digits. So we keep them in a string version, concatenate, parse to integer. And then for, all those numbers we're simply summing up. Considering as well that if we use the digits, then we're turning them into the dot, so that we're not gonna use the same number twice. Like in here, it would be both those coordinates contain digits, so otherwise we would have used it twice. But since we're turning the digits to a dot after we use it, then that's fine. Oh, actually, you didn't see I was pointing to something, and you didn't see because my camera is. Sorry. Yeah, but yeah, I hope it's clear. So we've got symbol, find all those coordinates, get all those numbers, sum them up, and clear the use digits, change them to a dot. So we're not gonna use this 35 for both of those coordinates, but only for one of them. It's nice and simple. Okay, let's go to the part 2. Because it's taking too long. I'm still, talking too much instead of thinking and solving. That's why it's taking a long time, but it's fine. At least we've got some kind of narration. With next one, maybe I'm gonna try to talk less and try to solve it quicker. Right, in this schematic there are 2 gears. The first is the top left. It has part numbers 4, 6, 7, and 35. Oh, wait. I should read it from here. What the hell? Sorry. So the engineer finds the missing part and installs it in the engine. As the engine springs to life, you jump in the closest gondola, finally ready to ascend to the water source. You don't seem to be going very fast though. Maybe something is still wrong. Fortunately, the gondola has a phone labeled help, so you pick it up and the engineer answers. Before you can explain the situation, she suggests that you look out the window. There stands the engineer, holding a phone in one hand and waving with the other. You're going so slowly that you haven't even left the station. You exit the gondola. The missing part wasn't the only issue. One of the gears in the engine is wrong. A gear is any star symbol that is adjacent to exactly 2 part numbers. Its gear ratio is the result of multiplying those 2 numbers together. This time you need to find the gear ratio of every gear and add them all up so that the engineer can figure out which gear needs to be replaced. Consider the same schematic again. Okay, so in this schematic, 2 gears. First one is top left with those 2 numbers, so this is a gear because it touches 2 numbers, okay? And its gear ratio is going to be 35 times 467. The second gear is the lowest right. Which one? This is touching only 1 number. Okay, this one is touching 2 numbers, this and this. So its gear ratio is this times this. And all we need to do is add up all those gear ratios and see what is the result. And this is not a gear because it touches 1 number, this touches 1, and the gears are touching exactly 2 numbers. Okay, so that should be fairly easy. Let's implement the solve part 2 method. This is gonna be it, and so our gears are only stars. Other symbols are not the gears, so let's just quickly get a star equals to the star.char code at 0. So we get a code for our star. That is absolutely fine. And so we're gonna go again through all those. Yeah, we're gonna iterate through all the rows and those numbers, that's for sure. Again, so let's just perform the iteration. J is gonna be once again the index for the row, and for each element, and I is gonna be index for the x coordinate. So J is y coordinate, I is x coordinate. Okay, and what we're gonna need to do here. Give me just 1 second to quickly think. Okay, so basically we still need to find all those coordinates that are touching the star. We need to find the number of all those coordinates, and we simply need to record the numbers in an array and see if an array contains only two numbers or more. So if an array is if the length of an array is gonna be 2, then we got our gear. If it's gonna be less or greater than 2, then we don't have our gear. So that's actually fairly fine. So we're doing more or less the same thing as in port 1. So we need to check if we're meeting the star. So let's check if it's not a number or the element we're meeting, and let's check that char code of a element is equal to star. That's fine. If we're meeting a star, then we need to go once again for the same thing that we did here. So find our coordinates. Actually, we can copy this line because it's gonna be exactly the same thing. But we need a variable that's gonna record all the numbers. So let's go, the numbers is gonna be equal to an array, and then we're gonna map just like here. We're gonna do, well, not exactly like here, but more or less. So let's go and map through, let's go through all those coordinates. Let's iterate. And for those coordinates, we still need to check if it's a number, but if there's a number aligned to the coordinate, but at the same time we need to record the number in our array, because we need to store them and see if there's going to be exactly two numbers that are touching the coordinate. So that's fine. So let's number equals to find number of our coordinate, and let's simply check that, because if there's no number, we're returning false. So if there's number, then we're gonna go numbers that push number. It's that simple. And then we're simply gonna go, if we've got all the numbers found, then we're gonna check if the length of our array, if numbers that length is exactly 2. That way we know that there's only two numbers. And we still need to sum up all those ratios. So let's quickly go and implement again the counter, set it back to 0, and we're adding the we're adding the multiplication of those two numbers. Okay, so counter plus equals what? Counter plus equals numbers 0 times numbers 1. And after we've done all that, we simply wanna also log our result. Also log our counter. And let's have a look. What we got? Something is wrong. Obviously. What is... Oh, we're missing T here. For number 1. And again, something is wrong. Number is not defined. Oh, because it's not a number, it's numbers. We're missing an S. There we go. Now we've got the result. Okay, let's actually go back and change this to our test input. See if it matches. We've got 467835. 467835, that's correct. Let's go back and get the number from the actual input. Yeah, let's see. So it's 8728. Okay, let's actually copy this. Can I just copy this and paste? I should. Yeah, there we go. Submit. There we go. We get another star. So we've got day 3 solved. Once again, took slightly too long, but I need to skip the narration, I think, a little bit and focus on coding to speed it up. However, it was quite simple. So let's just sum up the second part, just so it's clear for everyone what we did here. So we're mapping through all those elements. So we're mapping through the rows. Well, and then we're looping through the rows. Then we're looping through all the elements in a row to find the star. So we've got conditions, and if those are met, then we know that we found a star. When we find a star, we use the same method as in part 1 to find the coordinates around the star that are touching the star. And for all those coordinates, we're looking for the numbers, just like previous time, but this time we're storing those numbers in an array, because we're looking only for the star that is touching 2 numbers. So then we're checking if the length of an array is 2, then we know that only 2 numbers are touching the array, so we know that this is our gear. And what we need to do is simply sum up the multiplication of those numbers for each gear. I hope it's clear for everyone. I know I'm still a little bit chaotic, but no preparation coding, and I'm trying to explain at the same time. I'm still new to it, but I think I'm getting better. So yeah, that's it for today. We've got the day 3 of our coding challenge, the Advent of Code for 23 solved. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you in the next video. Subscribe for more content.